Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday. How are we doing? Lovely to be back online. Good to see you all. I hope you're doing well. Let me know if you can see me and hear me. That would be very helpful. Hi to Opini Wise. That says Faber's been dropping some bangers. Can't wait. Thank you, man. Thank you. And Zoe Phillips has dropped us a couple of messages in chat as well. How you doing? Yeah. Hello, everyone. Good to see you. We're going to be doing our usual business. We play some dailies, talk, and just yap for a bit, which is always fun. Always a good way to spend the Friday. Hope everyone's had a good week. Hasn't been too stressful or too taxing. But in the meantime, I'm gonna sip on some tea. Hello, 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 hello. Hi, Christopher Garcia says hello. Happy Friday and or Saturday. Yeah, it's Friday night. For me, 7:30 at the moment. So happy Friday / Saturday, depending on where you are as well. Annika's grandpa says, talk to his brother. Don't worry, I will. Yapping is my specialty. Mayank Gangwa says, where do you study / find all the info? A few different places. Usually a few articles and some academic sources. So I usually look for an article, usually in the Atlantic. They're usually really good for interesting, thought-provoking pieces. The New York Times. And then once I have a bit more of an idea, I look for more and more articles, basically. Articles, papers, that's what I look for. And that gets me started. Annika's grandpa says, actually hit the remind me button for this one. Amazing. I appreciate that. I always forget to hit the remind me button on streams. And also I scheduled this one super last minute because I forgot to schedule it last night. So here we are. Well, thank you for coming though. You're appreciated. Hello, Nuntaken. How you doing, man? How you doing? Welcome. Happy Friday, my guy. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, as I was saying, I scheduled the stream a bit late. I was meant to schedule it yesterday, but I forgot. So here we are. Hang on, let me check that I'm recording. Yeah, and let me post a. There we go. Okay, amazing. Yeah, looks like everyone's doing well. As I said, we're going to be doing our usual spiel. We do, some dailies games to start off to warm up, and then we get into the presentation, the meat and potatoes of the stream, and yap for a bit. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna switch to a browser, and we're gonna do our dailies. And our daily games get us warmed up, they get us in the spirit, they get us ready to talk, and it's always just really chill. What I am going to do this week, though, is I'm gonna add a little timer in case someone joins and is curious why I'm looking at maps for the first 30 minutes to an hour of the stream. So let me do that now. Hang on. Yeah, I hope everyone's had a good week. It's not been too stressful and that it's not taken too much of a toll on you. Life is busy, I imagine, for most people these days. And it's starting to get darker earlier now, which is always quite sad. I feel like as soon as the summer begins to end, I feel my mood slowly start to dip as the days get shorter. But hey ho, that's life, isn't it? Right, let me see if this works. Just want to add a little timer. Okay. Ooh. Okay. Yeah, that looks like that works, right? Chuck that down there. Okay, in the meantime, this is not that precise of a timer. It's just to test it out. We might start earlier or later than that. But in the meantime, we're just going to start off with some dailies. I'll post a little pin message to say what the plan is. If you're not familiar with Time Guesser, it's a really quick game. It gets us warmed up. We get shown 5 pictures. And we need to figure out where the picture was taken and what year it was taken in. Very simple game, very fun. I'm very open to audience participation, so do feel free to contribute if you feel motivated. Mayank Gangwa says, I usually can't catch the streams because it's 5 a.m. for me right now. Super excited to watch live. Oh my god, 5 a.m. Are you, did you go to bed early or are you up late? Because if you haven't been to sleep yet, you should definitely go to sleep over watching a stream. But I appreciate that you're here either way. Yeah, it's a bit frustrating that because of time zones, I obviously can't reach everyone at the same time. And I have a job as well, so I can only stream in the evenings. So sadly, people usually in the EU can't really make the streams, but people in, I guess, North America or South America can manage it. But yeah, I'm happy to have you here. It's always a pleasure. But let me just add a little pin message for anyone who been talking about automation and work. And yapping. Mayan Gangwell says woke up super early. Oh, fair enough, fair enough. Well, good morning then, my guy. Good morning, good morning. I'm sure like if you went to bed early last night, you've got a good day ahead of you, man. Well, I'm glad that you decided to spend your morning with me. But in the meantime, what we're gonna do is we are gonna smash out some time guesser, and then we're gonna get to the meat and potato of today. So, as I said, the way time guesser works is super straightforward. We have a picture and we need to figure out where in the world it was taken and in what calendar year it was taken. So this is quite easy, I think. I'm pretty sure this is like the pyramids in Egypt, right? I mean, it seriously looks like it. I don't know what else would have this kind of shape. So I'm going to guess that these are the pyramids of Giza. Dan says, hola everyone. Just wanted to say greetings from Mexico this week. I'm going to be heading out now. Fads, have a good stream. Fads and have a great night, everyone. Oh, thank you, Dan. Have a good night, you too as well. Take care, my guy. Okay. So yeah, this is I'm pretty sure this is Giza because it's clearly the pyramids. Okay, let's see. They are in Cairo, and they should be the first thing to show up. There we go. 1978. See, that's a good guess based on the outfits, but also the black and white photograph is throwing me off. It's throwing me off. I think the 70s is a good guess. I am going to go a little bit earlier though. I'm going to go 1970. Hello, Mercy Chocolate. Hello, Mercy. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. Welcome to the stream. As I said, we're just doing some little warm-up stuff, and then we're going to get into the topic of today. For now, we're just going to do a little bit of time guesser, which we do every week. The principle is super simple. You get a picture and you need to figure out where it was taken and when. And we did pretty well on this round one. Okay, tourists climbing the Great Pyramid of Giza in the mid-70s. Since 1983, climbing the pyramids has been banned, and it was in 76. Okay, so it was actually later than I thought. With black and white photos, it's always super hard to tell. Like, was it a stylistic choice? Were those the only cameras that literally existed? You never know, do you? You never know. Okay, round two. We're gonna smash this. I think we're off to a good start. Message Chocolate says, doing well. I'm terrible with decades, but I try. I'm also not the best, but this isn't about winning, it's about taking part. So this gives me like South America vibes. Maybe I'm wrong because that does not look at all like a South American writing, but we'll see. Johnny Walker is a whiskey. Oh, Nuntaken reckons Kazakhstan 05. That's a good guess, to be honest. This is definitely like, like Russian adjacent, right? Let's see. There's literally very little information other than Russian kind of Russian style script, right? So I think Russia or Kazakhstan is a real good guess. Let's see. Mercy Chocolate says Russian early 2K vibes for sure, especially with these whips. Alperin says, hey Fads, your video on ADHD helped me understand my girlfriend's ADHD better. And we're both really grateful to you. Amazing. Oh, I'm so grateful to hear that. Yeah, it can be really weird with like making videos because you forget that you forget that real people watch it on the other end, right? Like in my head, all I see is like the numbers and the comments, and so it's always really nice to hear that like real people watch it and like actually processed it. Hang on, I'm just gonna. There we go. Just needed to clear my throat. Hey, Goosey, how you doing? How you doing? Lovely to have you in chat. Um, the button phone makes me think 1990s. Oh yeah, we've got a phone here. Oh, this has got to be older than 2005, right? An advert for these kind of phones. I don't think it's as early as 1990s because you wouldn't have had that many mobile phones back then, right? I think you still would have had bigger ones or flip phones. I think early 2000s is definitely the best bet. We're going to go 03. And we're either in Russia or Kazakhstan. I like Kazakhstan as a guess, so we'll go for Kazakhstan. What's the capital? What's the capital of Kazakhstan? A friend of mine cycled to Kazakhstan, actually. Sorry, she didn't cycle. She went overland from the UK to Kazakhstan using just like trains and buses and cars. Very, very interesting little road trip. But yeah, I like the Kazakhstan guess. Let's go for a street in Kazakhstan in 04. Ah, no, we were way off. Terrible round. So this is a street scene in Sofia, Bulgaria in the mid 2000s. Okay, so we were really good with we're good with dating, but clearly not with the geography. To be honest, you could have given me 50 guesses. I never would have gotten that, but that was Bulgaria. Hey, Indy bro, how you doing, man? You should be going to sleep by now, bro. Get yourself to bed. Right, round 3. So this is Ringo Starr for president, apparently. This is, well, Ringo, I presume, is Ringo from the Beatles. He looks like Ringo from the Beatles, right? And these women would like him to be president. So this is, I reckon, in New York. These buildings look mega New Yorky. Well, the thing is, I don't think it's in Britain though, because we don't have a president. Then they do have good teeth. They have incredible teeth. Hello, Landmana. How you doing? So I reckon this is Americans that haven't realized that the Beatles are British. And if it's Ringo for president, let's say 1969. Your second stream? Oh yeah, this is your second stream. Yeah, welcome back. Welcome back. It's nice to have you back. It's always nice to have people come back. You know, I scheduled the stream like super late because I was procrastinating, or I was tired actually last night and I just forgot to schedule it. But people have drip feeding in, so it's good to have you guys here. I like the cozy streams as well. And this looks like super New Yorky. This definitely doesn't feel like England. This, even the scaffolding is like a New York thing. But I may well be off. I'm gonna go for New York though, purely based on vibes, and I'm gonna go for 1969. Go for, you know, Lower East Side. We'll go here. Ah, wrong side of the country. No. So these are Californian girls rallying for the Beatles drummer Ringo Starr to become president, following the novelty song Ringo for President being released by the Young World Singers in 1964. Ah, okay. Well, this is not our best performance. We usually have better than this. Last week we killed it. This week we have flopped big time. But we're not going to let that stop us, are we? How are people supposed to know it? You're not supposed to know. That's the trick, you know? You're supposed to have an intimate knowledge of Beatles history to get this round. That's how it works. So I'm like, oh, okay. You got some Cyrillic script again, baby. See, I thought Italy as well, but then I saw the street sign, and this is a killer rig. They're filming like a bike ride scene. Oh my god. Oh, I love seeing the behind the scenes of moving scenes like this. It's so good. That's Spider-Man on the bike, Tom Holland. That is not Tom Holland. Watch it be Bulgaria again. Honestly, I think it's going to be Bulgaria again. I don't think this is a well-known actor. He doesn't look familiar to me. But we at least have the one clue of Cyrillic script. Oh, that is that Zelensky? It's not Zelensky, is it? He just looks like Zelensky. Maybe Zelensky before the war, because he looks a lot older than this these days. uh, no way, Zelensky. He's not shooting an ad on a bike, is he? This is gonna be ridiculous if it is. It's definitely mid 2010s, I would say, within the last 15 years for sure. We'll go 2016. That's 8 years ago. Perfect. And then we're gonna have to gamble on a country that uses Cyrillic script. And 420, what is your skincare routine? How's your face so smooth and shiny? We need answers. The reason my face is smooth and shiny is lighting, my guy. No, the lighting is pretty generous to me. My face, I have skincare issues like everyone, but I do try to, wash my face twice a day, use my toner in the morning and evening, moisturize, all the 9 yards, and my skin has gotten a lot better. But but you look 10 years younger than I assume you are. I'm going to need you to tell me how old you assume I am for that question, for that statement to make sense. In the meantime, I'm going to go for Croatia because they have an old center, and Dubrovnik, I know, has a really old center. So this is a wild guess, but I think we might be. Is there a residential kind of straight street? Yeah, like there. It is Zelensky. Oh my god, that actually is that Zelensky. My god, he is aged since the war. That's crazy. This is Zelensky being filmed on the streets of Lviv 1 year. Oh, okay, 1 year before taking the oath of office. Before serving as president, he was a well-known comedian and actor. I literally had no idea about that. Is that common knowledge that Zelensky was an actor? Anyways, let me catch up with chat. Praise the sun. I thought he was 26. I am 26. I am. That is a correct thought. I do nothing at all, and I'm starting to look old. What can you do for your skin? Sunscreen is the most important thing. Literally, if you're going to do anything, just do sunscreen. I wear sunscreen every day, and obviously, I am a black man. I'm not that sensitive to the sun, but it's helped a lot in keeping me youthful. So yeah, SPF 50, ideally, every day. That might be a bit excessive. But yeah, we'll start wearing sunscreen. And apparently Croatia doesn't use that kind of script. I didn't realize. M420 says, I assume you are 35 plus-ish because of your demeanor and wisdom. AGS, so we're doing AGS now, yeah. So you did, I am quite literally almost 10 years younger than what you assumed. Yeah, I did not realize this was Zelensky. He has really been aged by this war. There's a picture of Obama, isn't there, before and after he was president. Hang on, let me just find it. Obama before and after presidency. Where's the one I'm thinking of? This might have been this one, to be fair. And you can just see how much a guy has aged in the space of 8 years. I think Zelensky's had a similar type of thing going on, because he looks so youthful and happy here. Bless him. Okay, well, we've been gifted an easy one for the last round. Welcome to Carnaby Street. Damn, I'm older than you and I look it. Time is cruel. Yeah, the crazy thing with skincare is that the earlier you start, the better, right? And most people start once they start to see symptoms of their skin getting older. But if you look good, if your skin is good now, then you should start taking care of it now. M420 says, oh, the game's really simple, by the way. It's, you get a picture, you have to figure out where in the world it was taken and in which calendar year it was taken. This was a very easy one because it was taken in Carnaby Street in London. Landmana says that I hear there's a lot of Gen Z who are aging like milk lately. I didn't know about that. I'm gonna have to look into that. And Thomas says having guessed in Ukraine would have been better. Croatia uses Latin script. I also didn't know that. My knowledge of that part of Europe is really weak. The former Soviet state towards Greece type of direction. Yeah, basically from Slovenia through to Albania, I guess this is, right? Is that Albania? Albania, yeah. My knowledge of that whole part is really shoddy. M420 says, yeah, you've had a stressful life if you're She had a wrinkle since 18. And he says there's only 6 countries that use Cyrillic. I need to learn that. You know, that would actually make me so much better at like GeoGuessr and Time Guesser if I learned that. Okay, for now though, what we're going to do is we're going to smash this. This is going to be so easy. Carnaby Street is in Soho, which is in London. So is like round, where are we? Russell Square. There we go. Right. So we're in this kind of vicinity. And I don't know exact. Oh no, I think Carnaby Street is. Oh, it's next to that. What's the market called in London? Oh my god. Okay, we're going to be able to find it, but this is a good one. Okay, Gen Z is getting old and faster from all the microplastic in their blood and the internet in their brains. Yeah, no, microplastics are a big problem actually, right? Like they're finding like microplastics in like people's like testicles and stuff now. It's really sad. Borough Market, that is not the market is it Borough Market that I'm thinking of? M420, you should visit the Eastern Europe and the continent in general. You should probably stay on the island all the time. So I've visited quite a lot of continental Europe, but I'm only the western part. Like the easternmost place that I've been is like, where is it? It's probably like, yeah, probably like southern Italy, right? Is like the easternmost I've been. Or Munich. Oh no, Berlin. Actually, it's Berlin. I've never been to anywhere like east of Germany. I've never been to Poland, Czechia, Australia, anything. I really need to see that part of the world. 1987. I think 1987 is a good guess. Maybe a little bit later because of all the tracksuits. This is so British, and also there's a lot of white people here, which I think would imply 80s or 90s. Hang on, let me just catch up. I'm so lost. Landmana says, yeah, it's a TikTok trend for people to guess the age of a person who asks in a vid, and everyone's getting a high number guesses when they're in their early 20s. Interesting. Yeah, I think M420 makes a good point. I think a lot of people don't like see people in real life. They only interact with people on the internet, like influencers and things, and they get like a really distorted view of what actual people look like. And yeah, I think part of it is just like a brain rot thing, because when you're so used to seeing faces on the internet which are like perfect and polished and prim, you forget what normal people actually look like. But yeah, let's smash this out first, and we'll figure out where this is. And I'll go get my charger after this because I'm on low battery. Well, I'm on high battery, but it's lowering. 92 based solely on fashion. I definitely think early 90s is a shout. Carnaby Street is in this vicinity. Leicester Square, Grosvenor Square, Malborough Road. Let's see. If we had all day, I could scan this map and find Carnaby Street, but that's not very entertaining, is it? So let's pick a spot. I believe we're around here. Yeah, we're going to be super close either way. And I'm going to go 19. I think 92 is a good guess. I think 92 is a good guess. Also based on the shops. These were not, yeah. Let's go. Okay, we were 200 meters away, and it was 1989. It was a view down Carnaby Street of a pedestrianised shopping street in Soho, London. Perfect. Alazar says, bro, where's the AI talk? We're starting soon. There's a little timer in the corner. Probably start before that timer. But yeah, we just do some warm-up games just to get started and just to chat. It's always a nice time. We did do well on that one, although that was a bit of an easy round. Okay, 37,000. That was ass. That was a terrible performance, right? 40k minimum is the acceptable limit. And yeah, I let myself down. I let chat down. And honestly, I think I let my family down. But yeah, so we're gonna have two more games. We have Food Guesser, which is this but foodified, and then we'll bash out a global and we'll get to business, okay? And as M420 says, real ones are here for the chat, not the essay. Well, the realest ones are here for both, right? I'm here for chat, and you guys are hopefully here for me. Right, time for the redemption arc, as you say, Mercy Chocolate. We're gonna fucking smash it, right? We got this. We got this. So, food guess is a very simple concept. We're gonna get shown 3 meals. We need to figure out where they're from. I like geography games, in case you couldn't tell. I'm fairly certain this is going to be Indian, but let's see. It's got an ingredient called urad dal, which I've literally never heard of, but I know that dal is like lentils in India, right? Water, salt, yogurt, and tamarind. Those are very Indian ingredients. Chat masala. Yeah, I reckon we're good. Looks kind of doesn't look like the most appealing meal to me, but you know, I don't know what it tastes like though. I don't know what urad dal is. Hello Zoe Phillips, nice to have you back as well. Thank you. I missed you too. I always miss chat. I don't think it's Vanuatu for some reason. I don't think it's Vanuatu. It is in fact India. It's Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and India. And it's called Dahi Vada. It's a traditional Indian dish consisting of lentil-based fried balls. Nice. That are soaked in seasoned yogurt. And it goes back as far as the 12th century. Crazy. And dahi means yogurt. Makes sense. And does dal mean lentils, or does dal just contain lentils? Because I've never known. Dunma Dog says, my guess the answer is will work. Gig economy jobs will continue to expand. Well, good job stagnate disappear. That's part of what's gonna that's part of what at least I speculate is gonna happen. We'll get into it, but there's some interesting we'll get to it. And you says both. Okay, perfect. I've indicated it's some bastardized version from Bristol. Like honestly, this could easily be British, right? Like the UK has a lot of dishes that people think are Indian, but just from Scotland. Interesting. Right. Rice, pickled tea leaves, sesame seeds, peanuts, garlic, chilies, peanut oil, fish sauce. This is I'm getting like Southeast Asia vibes from this, right? Like the use of nuts, coriander. I'm getting like Southeast Asia vibes, but the food looks like Central Asian, like Kazakhstan. So it's a tangy rice salad made with fermented rice. Oh, Mongolian. I think Mongolia could be a guess. Monaco. For some reason, I think you're trolling M420. Dried shrimp must be a coastal country. If it's dried, though, I'm curious. It could be, coastal. Fresh. You get freshwater shrimp though as well, right? Do shrimp live in freshwater? I think you must be able to get freshwater shrimp. Yeah, it feels Central Asian. I'm actually going to go for Mongolia. Okay. So we're warm, but we need to go south in Mongolia. China, and further south is like Southeast Asia, right? Yeah, I'm going to go Southeast Asia. That was my original vibe. Malaysia, actually, that's a good shout. Okay. So we're in between Mongolia and Malaysia. It's called Tamin Jin. Okay, this has got to be like, like China. I was thinking China, right? Because China is in between. But it could be Taiwan as well. Okay, Taiwan, China, Taiwan. Okay, not China. Oh, we have 3 guesses left. So we can go for an educated guess, and I feel like China isn't going to help us. I do think this could be South Korean. Jin is one of the guys from BTS, so I'm going to go for that logic. Apparently not. Lao? Oh, okay. So it's like Cambodia, I think borders Laos, maybe Vietnam, maybe Myanmar. Okay, we're pretty close. I should have just stuck with my initial vibes. We already did Malaysia M420. It was incorrect. So I reckon we got Vietnam, Thailand, or Cambodia. I'm gonna go Cambodia. Oh, it was Myanmar. Ah, no. I even said Myanmar. This is 2 weeks in a row we've actually had Myanmar. And this is a dish called Tamin Jin, right? And yeah, Myanmar, known as Burma, it's composed of fermented rice, evidencing a method of preservation that extends the longevity of rice, staple food in many parts of Asia. Fermentation, a time-honored technique, allows rice to develop a distinct tangy flavor and aroma. We were so close, and yet so far, close. Close is not good enough, Goosey. Close is not good enough. I've never actually had fermented rice. I have no idea what it would taste like. I never thought you needed to ferment rice, really. I thought drying it did a pretty good job at making it last, but maybe in Southeast Asia, it's worth fermenting it. Maybe tastes like rice but fermented. That's not what I was thinking. I thought it would taste like chicken, but they say everything tastes like chicken, don't they? I want to try it after looking at the picture. Does look good. Like that's the kind of shit I would munch on. Okay. That's quite funny. We have a coffee crisp chocolate bar. The text is in French. On top of it, it says "un goûter léger délicieux," which means a light, delicious snack in French. But I don't know if this is French. But given that the text is French, we'll go for France. Oh my god! Well then, USA borders the USA, so we've only got two choices: Canada or Mexico. We'll go Canada. Okay, so this is a coffee crisp. It's a chocolate bar, and truly Canadian culture is the finest. Is the finest. Truly. Okay, so we've been really slacking on the dailies. This has been a terrible performance today, but it's been incredibly fun, and that's what really matters. Obviously, I tie my ego to how well I do at time guesser and food guesser, so I am gonna cry a little bit tonight. But aside from that, I'm glad I could spend the time with you. Goosey says I knew it was Canada, not the USA, because it had few ingredients. That's very true. That's very true. Yeah, I think it's crazy how many ingredients are like banned in even Canada or the EU that are just like totally good to go in the US. It baffles me. It really does baffle me. Because you gotta wonder, like, to ban a food, it's got to be pretty bad. But why is the US like chill with it? Who knows? Hive Indicator says English and French means Canada. That is a good point. That is a good point. I should know that better, given that I literally live in the English and French part of Canada. Hang on, let me just catch up on a few messages, see if I missed out. Hive Indicator says, I want to see your global first pick. My buddy has a years-long argument about what's best. Oh, my first pick is always Chad, because I'm a Chad. Yeah, that's my logic. M420 says, off topic, but how many generations are you British? Do you know much about your family history? I barely know anything about my grandparents. So my parents immigrated to the UK as adults, as asylum seekers. So I am, I guess, second generation, I guess is the term, but technically like first generation. Yeah, me and my mum became British citizens at the same time. Actually, I still have like they give us a little medal. I'll get it whenever I'm back in the UK. But we got given like a medal that like has my name on. It's like, you're now officially a British citizen. It's so cool. Indy says, have you ever saw how many ingredients American cereal has? I haven't seen cereal specifically, but my God, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, because like cereal has to last for, months on a shelf. And so it just has more. What is it? Zoe says it's okay in the US because of lobbyists. Yeah, I mean, that's the answer, right? It's because of lobbyists. It's like the stuff that they'll put in the food. I guarantee the Nestle CEO doesn't let his kids eat any of their chocolate. No chance. Goosey says, Fad is flexing his medal on us brokies. I don't know if it's still a thing that they do. Let me see. UK citizenship medal. I don't know if they still do that. Yeah, so it was, yeah, my medal kind of looks almost like this, but with smaller text. Uh, but yeah, I have a medal. It's not like this one. It's pretty similar. M420. Where did your parents immigrate from? They immigrated from a small country in West Africa. I probably don't want to dox myself too much, so I'll avoid the detail. But yeah, they emigrated from small West African country. And I was basically entirely raised in the UK. Like that's where all my life has taken place. How come you don't know much of your family history, M420? Have you tried asking your parents, or do they not know much about it? Okay, so last game, global. You just have to guess the country. Very simple. And we always start with Chad, because we are Chads in this chat, okay? Closest border. France is adjacent to the answer. Okay, nice. Spain. Germany. Belgium. Oh my lord. Luxembourg. There we go. Smashed that. It took a few guesses. That was actually pretty quick, to be honest. What do we have? A3J says, if AI takes all the jobs, then what we do all day is ask where the hell are universal basic income, healthcare, and weed is. Mercy Chocolate says, West Africa, up one, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Yeah, that was a rapid one. Okay, amazing. So we've done our dailies. We're gonna stop looking at pictures of Obama, and we're gonna get to business. So today's talk is gonna be what we're gonna talk about. We're gonna talk about automation and how that's projected to affect the world of work. But really, I want to focus on the ways that technology has already affected the world of work, because we have a whole history there that can give us a little bit of context and maybe give us some insight into whether the predictions that some people make are going to come true. But before that, we're gonna go to the toilet, gonna sip on some tea, and we're gonna get ready. Sorry, let me catch up on chat in the meantime. Landmana says UK is lucky to have you. Oh, thank you. They don't actually have me right now because I live in Canada at the moment. But I appreciate that you think that look, the UK is lucky to have me. I've often thought the same, and nobody seems to agree. Hive Indicator says, I've had ones that took me dozens of guesses. Yeah, no, same. I've had some embarrassing ones. Global and like the New York Times games are like the only ones I really play like daily. And I've had some bad ones. Sipping on tea is peak British. It's not just tea, it is Twinings Earl Grey, Twinings of London. Most British tea there is. uh, Hang on, let's see. Where are we? Zoe Phillips says, if you go back far enough, we are all from Africa. That is very true. That's very true. If you go back far enough, we're also all very related. M420 in primary school, a kid once made fun of me because I said Egypt is in the north of Africa, because Egypt is in the south of Europe. Bless. And Mama says, then I'm lucky to have you in Canada. Fellow Canadian. Welcome. Team poutine and bagged milk. Let's go. I tell you what, the bagged milk really freaked me out when I got here. If you don't know, in Canada, they like sell milk in bags. You can get it in cartons as well, but they just have these giant bags of milk, and you're expected to put it in like a jug that you have at home. But it's really uncomfortable to see milk in a bag. Part of the reason I switched to oat milk is just the bagged milk. It stressed me out too much. M420 says, I'm from Pangaea. Mes Chocolate says, milk and sugar in tea, yes or no? Yes to milk, no to sugar. That's the correct way. A little splash of milk is good to go, but no No sugar. Sugar is a no-no. No. I used to be pro sugar, but I've accepted now that it ruins the taste of the tea. So yeah. Lanmana says I was very much raised on the bagged milk. I found the bagged milk. You were made by it. Unfortunately, the first time I saw black people, I assumed they were American because I'd only seen them in Hollywood movies. To be fair, like that's not crazy, right? Like it's if you've never met, you know, it's like if you hear about the stories of like black people or even sometimes white people, you go to China, to rural China, and the little kids are like terrified because they've never seen a person that looks like that before. It's a bit wild. Mercy Chocolate says, I still do a bit of sugar / honey. Honey's a W. Honey's a W. And Mars, I can't believe Fads is a Hollywood. I'm a Hollywood celeb, man. Did no one tell you? I do have one IMDb credit for a short film that I helped with a couple of years ago. So that is the closest I've gotten to a Hollywood celebrity. And also, someone asked ages ago if I'd visited the US. Sorry, I missed that message, but I have visited the US. I was there just a few months ago. I was in California for VidCon, actually, which was very, very fun. Very fun. But as I was saying, this is the older presentation. Let's get to this week's presentation because Landmana says, oh nice, I got an IMDb credit. Let's go. What did you get your credit for? Was it a short film, a musical project? What was the deal? Okay. I'll tell you what, while you do that, I'm just going to go to the bathroom real quick and we'll get started after that. Beep boop. Let's see. Hang on. Boop. Worked on the new series of Blue's Clues. That's sick. Okay, before we talk about that, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'll be 2 seconds, okay? We're back. Can you hear me? Nice. I think we're back. I think I missed out on a few messages. Goosey says my girlfriend called me and I missed 5 minutes of stream. You didn't miss anything important. I think the time you spent with your girlfriend is probably more important than me in chat. That's crazy. There seems to be a wealth of talent in chat. Working on Blue's Clues is pretty crazy though. Yeah, I've never worked on anything like that official before. I think it'd be really cool. There was a while when I thought that maybe like going into mainstream film and TV would be of interest to me, and I think it still would be. But it's a hard industry though, right? Like it's like the financial security is not there, and you have to really have love for the art. But yeah, right. Let's get to it. I'm gonna get my notes up, and then we're gonna dive in. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, so just need to get my notes up, and we'll be good to go. We'll be good to go. Okay. Also need to check that we are recording video and recording audio as well. Yep. All right, let's get into it, gang. Let's get into it. So, robots are coming for our jobs, right? This is a phrase that you've likely heard at some point in the last few years, either when you were a kid or more recently with the rise of new AI technologies. And it's not a completely unfounded fear. In fact, you might have seen that TikTok recently laid off hundreds of moderators in order to shift towards AI moderation. Around 700 people lost their jobs in a shift towards AI. And more significantly, just a few weeks ago, arguably one of the most important strikes in recent human history took place in the US. The longshoremen, the guys who load and unload ships at ports, went on strike. And this strike cost the US economy apparently around $4.5 billion a day. And the strike was all about one thing, right? One word crops up time and time again. The word is automation, baby. You might see here. Automation. 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 Can't circle the words. And machines, right? So this strike took place largely over the question of automation. The longshoremen were asking themselves, what's going to happen when the machines take over our jobs? When the AIs and the machines take over all of our jobs, what will we do all day? And this was such a big pressing problem for them, to the extent that they were willing to shut down the US economy to the tune of literally billions of dollars a day. The strike has now been postponed until January, but we'll see. And this isn't just longshoremen or TikTok content moderators that are being affected by this. The International Monetary Fund estimates that about 60% of jobs are exposed to AI in developed economies. Some jobs will benefit and some will be hurt, but a significant number are exposed to the risk of AI. And well, the thing is, for most of human history, we were like really optimistic about how technology would change our lives. I've mentioned before John Maynard Keynes, who said that we'd work only 3 hours a day because of advancements in technology. And William Morris is another significant author who speculated that we'd work 4 hours a day in the future because of the rapid advancement of technology that would allow us to gain leisure time. Obviously, this has not happened, and the tide has kind of turned. This technological optimism has slowly waned, and it's worth asking the question, like, when the machines do take all of our jobs, well, what's going to happen to us? What will we do all day? What's interesting is that AI has obviously began to take inroads already. If you have applied for a job recently, according to the CEO of ZipRecruiter, which is like a really big, it's a big hiring platform, there's a 75% chance at least that your CV was read by an AI instead of a human. It's, in his own words, the dawn of robot recruiting has come and went, and people haven't caught up to the realization yet. Let me just catch on these messages. So, President says, in The Guardian, Stephen Greenhouse describes the AI-enabled workplace where precarious, often misclassified workers are monitored, judged, and fined by algorithms. That's not too far from what already exists, I would say. There are a number of industries where, your performance is tracked in some opaque computing system that has some opaque metrics and that doesn't really know anything about you. And I struggle to see that becoming better. That's a good point. I'm not familiar with Detroit Become Human. Yeah, I'm not familiar with it. But yeah, as he says, the dawn of robot recruiting has come and went, and people just haven't realized yet. Technology has already started to supplant jobs, and we already have a wealth of history behind us that can actually guide us when trying to answer the question of what's going to happen to the worker of the future. Are we ready for a future without jobs? Is it going to screw us? We'll find out. None Taken says, I had my first encounter with AI at a drive-through. I immediately received my food. It felt weird as hell. Only one person was working a shift inside. Oh my God, that's crazy. It was one of the like automated order delivery. I've seen videos of those. Oh my God, that's crazy. I didn't know that they were like in production already. Wild. But yeah, it's a big question, this idea of like a post-work society, of a future without jobs, right? The optimist might say that it's a future that will lead to us chilling all day, right? Relaxing, playing golf, playing football, doing what we want. The pessimist might take a different approach and potentially argue for a slightly darker future. But as I say, there's a wealth of evidence that describes how technology has already affected the workplace. And by understanding that, we can maybe begin to have some more informed assumptions about what might happen going forward. And so I think we should talk about that and try and figure out whether it's going to be, this utopic society or whether we're going back to the era of feudalism. As Shaka says, it's a video game about society where robots take over jobs and gain consciousness and shenanigans ensue. And Praise the Sun says, AI sales pitch is not buy an AI tool and increase your costs while increasing your accuracy. It's, buy an AI and save money by firing workers. Yeah, that's a very good point. Very good point. So, are we cooked? Is the worker of the future cooked? Is the entire future cooked? Let's try and find out. So while it can be tempting to think of generative AI and of large language models as these completely revolutionary, brand new technologies that have appeared out of nowhere, the reality is that they're one element in a long line of technological progress that began in the 1980s with the computer revolution. And while today the idea of a desktop computer doesn't feel particularly innovative or special, it completely changed the course of human history, and it completely changed the course of the labor market in the workplace. So maybe going back to the 1980s, we have a little bit of a good place to start, I think. So yeah, as I said, AI is simply one in a long line of significant technological advancements that have taken place over the last 50 to 60 years, since the 1980s mainly. And these technological advancements have modified the world of work, and they've given us a little bit of insight into what's going to happen going forward, I think. And when we usually think about how technology affects the workplace, I think intuitively, and maybe you, people in general, I believe, have a pretty simple idea of how it takes place. We typically think of, the idea of a worker being fired, a manager walking into the office, telling you you're fired, and then as you walk out, a Tesla bot or something walks in and takes your job, right? I'm obviously exaggerating, but the typical conception of how technology takes jobs is in this like linear exchange way, where the worker gets kicked out or multiple workers get kicked out and technology just gets plugged in their place. But that's not actually what happens. The reality is a bit more complicated than that. And when we think of the effect of AI on workers, I think the conversation focuses, especially the modern conversation, focuses quite heavily on white collar workers and how they've been affected by the rise of technology. Artists are, granted, like with good reason, pretty annoyed about AI. People like translators are pretty scared of AI, and people like people who work in the professional class in general are the ones who are most fearful of the effect of new automation technologies, I should say. But is this the case? Like, who has been historically affected by technology? I would ask myself. Well, if we go back to the 1980s, we can actually see a different picture of how technology has affected the workplace already. Particularly, it's affected blue collar workers and white collar workers really differently. And Hang on, before we get into that, I'll just catch up on the last few messages. Praise the Sun. I did have a bit about the Luddites, but I kind of cut it out. I didn't think it was that relevant in the script, but we'll talk about it at the end because I think it's an interesting story. And there's another similarly interesting story that doesn't get as much attention as the Luddites. Just look up what AOC said, really relevant. Okay, yeah. So who has already lost their job to technology? Who's been the most affected by technology? Well, I came across a really interesting paper called, what's it called? It's called The Growth of Low-Skill Service Jobs and Polarization in the US Labor Market. And these guys looked at the last several decades of technological advancement and tried to figure out who had actually been affected, who was losing their jobs. And they noticed that if you look at the change in employment, you actually get this really, really interesting little curve, this U-shaped curve. This U-shaped curve tells you two things, right? It tells you that there's been really big growth in high-paying jobs up here. And it tells you that there's been growth in low-paying jobs down here. The people who've been really screwed are the guys in the middle, the guys and gals in the middle. The major effect of technology since the 1980s has been this phenomenon that's called job polarization. Effectively, middle-income, middle-skill jobs have been replaced because they were typically the most routine ones. They've been replaced by an increase in high-income jobs and an increase in low-income jobs. Obviously, with the adoption of the computer, you need software engineers, you need hardware engineers, you need, people to work in these manufacturing plants. And that's created this huge growth in like high-paid jobs. Sadly, it's deleted all of these middle-income jobs. These middle-income jobs were mainly in things like manufacturing, bookkeeping, clerical work. And the jobs that have stayed are the lower paid jobs, which are the manual labor, which can't be replaced by a computer, sadly. This job polarization has actually done a few things to like the labor market already. It's pushed all of these people into one of two directions. Either you get training and you go up here, or you can't retrain and you go down here. Really weird trying to find the exact way to multi-show. So where were we? Yeah, so as I was saying, what we've seen is we've seen this massive shrinkage in middle income, middle skill jobs and growth in the high end of jobs and the low paying end of jobs, which is not a good thing. It's not a good thing. This idea is called job polarization. And it's an observable phenomenon across many different parts of the world as they've adopted technology. This loss of like middle income jobs has been like catastrophic, especially in the US. In the US, they've seen it mainly in manufacturing, where millions of jobs have been lost since the 1980s to technology. Not technology like in the sense of AI, but simple technologies like computers, which allow for more efficient manufacturing, as well as the loss of jobs to cheaper markets in other countries. And, while it's obviously sad, it can be tempting to feel like this is just, this is a natural thing and these people presumably found something else to do. But it's had like really lasting impacts ever since the 80s. The loss of manufacturing jobs has been directly linked with the rise of opioid-related mortality. Fentanyl is now in the US the number one killer of adults under 50, which is crazy. And it's been directly linked multiple times with the loss of these manufacturing jobs. The loss of middle-income jobs has not just pushed people into lower paid work or pushed them to retrain and gain higher paid work. It's actually pushed a lot of people to just give up on the concept of work entirely and, resort to opioids like fentanyl. And these jobs don't actually all like disappear in the way that we think. It isn't a matter of these people being fired and then subsequently replaced by computers, by automated technologies. Rather, what we see is that jobs actually get lost in like big batches. So whenever there's an economic downturn, obviously loads and loads of people lose their jobs. And the jobs that are really susceptible to automation experience the worst job loss in this period. Whenever there's an economic downturn, loads of people will lose their jobs. And it won't be obvious that they're losing their jobs to technology. But what will happen is that corporate profits will recover far more quickly than the jobs will. And that gap is accounted for by technology. So effectively, whenever there's a next recession, we'll have a really good idea as to how real AI actually is, because a lot of people will inevitably lose their jobs. And the question will be whether those jobs will recover at the same rate as corporate profits, which tend to recover a lot more quickly than the job market. Let me just catch up on the last few messages. I think it'll probably be at least 50 more years, probably 100, but I wish that every job will be replaced. I wish I could remember the name, but there's a program in AI already. Yeah, there is. It's not too popular though at the moment, but obviously you can, it's going to get better. Sounds like that'll push those middle income workers into lower income jobs. That's exactly what it's done, right? It's forced middle income workers into lower income jobs. Once AI can make new AIs, things will progress insanely faster than that already is, and that is wild. Yeah, that does also assume that they'll get to that point, which, is a point of debate. Goosey says, this is interesting because Stephen Hawking said a big fear of AI was how the wealth would be distributed. Yeah, that's going to be like a big underlying theme of this talk. Because as we can see, technology has created like differential effects depending on where you are economically. If you were in that group of highly mobile middle income workers who had the chance to become a high income worker, you've lost that opportunity most significantly. You've lost the opportunity to become, a senior manager in the world of manufacturing if you're in America. Landmanner says, imagine getting closer to a Star Trek future than where we are now, where stuff is free, but people can still work if they feel like it. We will actually cover that, that possibility as well. So as I was saying, yeah, an economic downturn will give us a really good preview as to whether the promise of automation is actually real, because it's in these economic downturns that jobs are lost really, really quickly. And afterwards, they either recover at the same pace that corporate profits do, or they don't recover and they're lost to technology. This job polarization, this shift of middle income workers into two brackets, either really high income or low income because of technology, has had measurable effects already. It's documented to have increased inequality across Western Europe. It's increased inequality in North America as well. And it's forced people to effectively work worse jobs, sadly. So yeah, job polarization has increased inequality across Western Europe and across the USA as well. And, some people might think, well, I'm good. I work in technology and I'm not susceptible to polarization because I'm in the industry. But the issue is, even if you are working in these automated industries, your future doesn't necessarily look as bright as it should do. This working paper out of UCLA measured the impact of internet adoption in Brazil and how that affected workers, how they affected workers specifically who directly benefited from this, workers who worked in firms where internet adoption was helpful. And they found something that might not be that surprising if you think about it. But even in those industries that benefited from technology, you saw massive differential effects depending on your social class. So the average employee wage went up by 2.3% because of broadband internet. So if you worked in an industry that adopted internet, your wage would go up by 2.3% if you're an employee. If you're a manager, your average wage increased by somewhere around 8 to 9% with the adoption of internet. This is over the course of about 10 years. 9 years, I believe, actually. If you're an executive, your average pay increased 18 to 19% over the period. And it's hard to argue that AI is, more revolutionary than the internet. The internet was completely revolutionary, and it still had this huge differential impact where the benefits were not distributed evenly amongst the people who should have benefited from it. The low-level employees who likely saw the greatest increases in productivity didn't see the commensurate increase in salaries. Yeah, and this is because of the adoption of the internet specifically. Satonic. Oh, hi, Satonic. I wonder if AI proponents have considered how much of the economy is made up of people doing the activity of work. I how much of the clothes industry is selling work clothes to people like suits. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like there's a huge knock-on effect, right? Like that's what they say is globalization, right? Like every industry globally is so intertwined with each other that if you like knock one puzzle piece out, it has such a cascading effect on like every other industry. It's crazy. Um, yeah, this is a classic case of hardest work and reaps the least reward. And so he says, if people in tech think that they are safe, that's wildly wishful. AIs are going to take computer jobs first. Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? The thing is, you either get your job taken, or even if you do keep your job, you're not going to see the benefit that you should be seeing, financially at least. And this is already measurable, right? This has already happened with the internet. It's not created equal benefits for society already, which is sad. But yeah, where were we? So yeah, as I was saying, what we're seeing is we're seeing more and more that technology is affecting workers by sorting them into two groups, into the really high paid workers and the really lower paid workers. It's like almost a meme at this point that, tech salaries are stupid or stupidly high or have been stupidly high for quite a long time. Um, and this is like a measurable effect, right? Technology has already had this effect of splitting workers more and more into these two polarized groups, into these two increasingly unequal groups, and into two groups which have very little mobility between them. Because if you lose the middle income jobs, then you can't really go from a low income job to a high income job that easily. Present as mass tech workers layoff have gutted tech workers' confidence. Yeah, so we're going to talk about that as well, actually. Where are we? So yeah, suppose you are one of the people that did lose their job to AI, right? The question is then, like, now what? What do you do then? Oh yeah, sorry. So oh yeah, so this is as I was saying, the differential effect of technology in increasing inequality is like pretty well documented. It's one factor in the fact that CEO pay has increased by 1,460% since 1978, and employee salaries have not budged by nearly that much. Let me just catch up on these two messages. Praise the Sun says, mass tech worker layoffs have gutted tech workers' confidence. Google laid off 12,000 tech workers just a month after a buyback that would have paid their wages for the next 27 years. Yeah, tech has been going through a bit of a rough patch, and we're going to address that. I feel like AI will turn every industry like the entertainment industry. What do you mean by that? What do you mean it's going to turn them into, like, in what way do you think it's going to turn them all into entertainment? None taken says, I wonder how it's going to affect the cybersec sector. I'd assume not too much because companies would still trust an actual analyst to manage exploits. Well, I mean, today we already have like lots of automated bug detection or hack detection features, right? So it depends how good that stuff gets, but you're always going to need some amount of people. The issue is how many people do you need? Because, if one person can do the job of 10 people, that's still a 90% reduction in employership. Thomas Saint Jean says, in my ideal world, AI grows the food, builds the houses, and people have fun. Yeah, we'll talk about that world as well towards the end. That is also my ideal world. Whether it's feasible, I don't know, is a different question. But yeah, where were we? Yeah, so as I was saying, we're seeing workers being more and more split into these two groups of like low paid workers and really high paid workers, and very little in the middle. This has been a measurable impact of technology since the 80s, and I find it difficult to believe that it's going to be it's going to be getting better. Sees the means of computation. But yeah, let's speculate, right? And let's imagine that we are one of the people who loses their job to technology in this sense. The question is then, like, now what? Well, historically, the solution to losing your job to automation has been education. Education has been the one thing that has stopped huge amounts of people from losing any kind of income over the last 50 years. They've been able to adapt. They've been able to learn how to use the technological tools to be more competitive in the workplace. And they've been able to survive, right? I did show you this graph earlier on of how the job distribution has changed and how these middle income jobs have been lost. And some of these middle income workers have been able to go up here to high income jobs through the virtue of education, right? Through education in general. Some of them have gone the other way, to be fair. But it's, we've got to accept that some workers have been able to upskill. And a lot of workers have been able to upskill. And there's been massive growth in the tech industry, for example. However, even that benefit, that idea of using education to beat the system is not so good anymore. As Praise the Sun mentioned, Google laid off 12,000 tech workers just months after a stock buyback. And today we actually have an oversupply of talented people. Too many people have tried to retrain. If you're a computer science grad, you've likely experienced the difficulty of trying to find a job in this market. And if you're working in any kind of technology sector, you're likely hugely struggling. Intel's been doing layoffs. Google has done layoffs. Who else? I think Riot Games is doing layoffs as well. I saw that the other day. ByteDance, TikTok is doing layoffs. And this idea that we can beat this increasing automation through education has led actually to a system where there are tons and tons of highly trained but unemployable graduates because there simply aren't enough jobs. This is a particularly huge problem in China. It's a big problem in India, and it's also a problem in the US, actually. If you are a tech graduate, let me know what your experience of finding work has been. And yeah, as Nuntaken says, video game devs are getting laid off as well, right? This promise that we can beat automation through education is starting to prove not as robust as it once was. And the craziest thing is that this is actually affecting these really high paid or these really highly trained workers. There's been what's called a great reversal in the demand for these cognitive skills. And more higher skilled workers are being forced to, move down the ladder in quotes and perform jobs that are typically done by lower skilled workers. So these highly trained people who are sold the promise of being able to beat automation through education are finding out that that's not actually true. And they're being pushed more and more towards lower paying jobs, which increases competition for those jobs, sadly. Next says, Comsci guy, that's man, it's true. I feel really sad for the junior devs. 3 years ago, there were so many jobs. Now it's like a dry well. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing, right? That's like the common thing that I've been hearing lately. There are these huge layoffs, but the profits are still going up. Praise the Sun says, a Martian watching this technology use unfold through a powerful telescope could not tell you why the dividends from these machines should favor capital owners rather than workers. Politics, isn't it? It's bargaining power. It's a lot of things, right? It's a lot of things. Yeah, a Martian would not understand, right? Would not understand. If you weren't born in the system, it wouldn't make any sense. Landmana says, the entire entertainment industry has basically imploded. It will rebuild itself over time now, even if it's not the current studios that do it. Indies will rise up and fill market demand just like any other industry. Okay, I get what you're saying. I don't know if that's going to happen to tech, because tech has a uniquely special stranglehold on society at large. Obviously the entertainment industry is able to collapse without the day-to-day lives of people changing that significantly, simply because there's such a long release cycle for entertainment, and there's just such an oversupply already. But I think, obviously, if Google goes down for a day, that destroys a lot of people's lives, basically. So I don't know. I'd have to think about it a bit more to think about whether it's sensible to actually to compare the two. But I get what you're saying. A3J says, is it actually possible that we end up with two economies? That we could end up with the economy on the news and the economy. Yeah. So what we're seeing is that there's a increasing different separation between the value of assets and the value of labor, right? Asset prices have been we basically already have this situation where asset prices have been increasing steadily without stopping for an incredibly long time now, right? Like if you bought a house in the 80s, you'd be doing good. If you bought a house in the 90s, you'd be doing great. If you bought a house 10 years ago, you'd be doing amazing still. But if you've been working for since the 80s, since the 90s, or for the last 10 years, the growth that you've seen has been incredibly rapidly outpaced by assets and securities, right? Like things like houses, things like stocks. There's already like we're basically already in a dual economy, and I can only see it getting worse, right? Because the value of assets has consistently been outpacing the value of labor, and so this idea of like two economies is actually like a really it's a good point. It's a good point. There's an economist called Paul Krugman. He's like he got a Nobel Prize actually, and sorry, he's like he got a Nobel Prize a couple of decades ago, I think, and he's a big believer of this idea of like dual economies, that the value of like of capital, of assets is just going to continue expanding, and the rate at which it grows is going to get faster, but the value of labor is not going to work. So if you're a worker, you're not going to see the benefit of all of these extra funds in the economy. So yeah, that's a good point. Zoe Phillips says, I bought a house 5 years ago. It's gone up like 50K in value. Yeah, exactly, right? Like the value of assets is growing crazy. If you can have like a tangible asset, then it's gonna go wild. But the value of labor is not following that trend. Jacob E says, I forgot I had subscribed to you. Thanks for letting me know. Grayson says, we deserve better than this. We can get it organized and unionized. Yes, please. If it's possible for you to unionize, please look into it. By the way, please do look into it. But yeah, the point I'm making is effectively that we've seen this like we've seen a recent drop in demand for highly trained and highly skilled workers, and this has pushed workers in a polarized market towards really low income jobs, which are the jobs that are literally around, right? Every restaurant and every cafe is hiring, but they're not going to pay you, a living wage. And this is affecting people who were promised to be able to be liberated through education, to be able to have a good life through education, and are finding that the jobs that were once available are slowly disappearing. I3J says, real talk, I'm in rural Texas. I came from a cattle rancher family. I basically have a whole workshop in a shipping container. Local folks sell bread, barbecue, eggs by the side of the country road. That sounds lovely, to be honest. And maybe Ambia says, I bought a house 10 years ago and it's gone up 300K. God, that's crazy. Get your bag though, bro. What's this? Jacob says, I could see AI workers working if we had a culture of working for free. Simply to better humankind, but that's never going to happen. I think you're pretty spot on there. There'd have to be a big cultural shift, right, for the gains of technology to be somewhat fairly distributed. Seems like that we're going to get AI bosses that monitor their eyeballs and dock their paychecks for peeing. I don't know if you've ever seen what the offices look like in an Amazon warehouse, but it's pretty close to that. Just with a human instead of an AI. I might show you after the talk, but I don't know if you've ever seen like the office in an Amazon warehouse. Basically, the manager has like 6 monitors with like live analytics on everyone's performance, how quickly everyone's packing boxes, how quickly everyone's doing their job, and they literally will just go to the people who are in the red on the screen and just like give them a grilling. It's so dystopian. Like Amazon warehouses are crazy. I really want to talk to someone who's actually worked in one. I think it would be very interesting to learn about it. I've only seen videos and stuff of people who've worked in them. But yeah, we're pretty close to that already, especially with Amazon. But yeah, sorry, as I was saying, this like promise of being able to retrain people is slowly dying, and I think it's very unreasonable to expect that at the increasing rate at which technology is developing, that it's going to be even a feasible option in the future to retrain yourself out of a job loss. It's quite unreasonable to expect, every translator to become an AI engineer, for example. But, you know, even if that future was possible, even if the future where everyone who loses their job can retrain and can get a new job, it wouldn't solve the problem that we have, because the gains that are being produced by this technology, or by technology in general, have been really inequitably distributed. And even with retraining, people are not regaining the purchasing power that they should be regaining. And so we have a problem here. Amazon can't complain about company culture if we fire you. Yeah. Jacob says, I work in security and it's not all bad. We have live analytics to help us watch cameras. It highlights possible threats, track suspects, and so on. Yeah, no, I mean, it'd be crazy to claim that all technology is bad, right? Like, obviously, even the medical field has benefited like immensely from technology, right? Like, there are surgeries that would be impossible without computers. Even, you know, like a colonoscopy, right? When they stick a little, what's it called? Is it a colonoscopy I'm thinking of? The one where they stick a little camera up your bum. That one wouldn't work, right, without computers. So yeah, it's not all bad. Obviously, there's been huge gains, and it's helped workers do their job. But the question is, has it helped like the labor market, right? Has it helped everyone in work, or most people in work? A3 says, is it possible that at the end of the day, we already don't factor into the economy, except as something for the television to complain about for not participating in the economy? So if you're from the US, this might be interesting to you. I don't know if you are from the US, but I learned that consumer spending makes up 70% of the US economy, roughly. So yeah, 70% of the US economy is just made up of shit people buy. So, you know, when we get told the economy is doing bad, often it means that just people aren't spending enough money. So yeah, where our role in the economy is as consumers. Like, it shouldn't be, but that's what it is, right? Our role is defined by what we consume and how much we consume. Thomas says, I love the idea of a world where AI is taking care of everything that is required for our sustenance, and humans just have fun with their universal basic income, but it's too utopian. Yeah, I honestly, like, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I do think it's a little bit too utopian. We might get close to that, but the reality is that we probably have the resources on Earth right now to live a life quite close to that already. And you know, we haven't really done that. Like, there are you know, thousands and thousands of jobs that could not exist easily, right? I don't know if any of you have ever read a book called Bullshit Jobs. It's basically a book about like jobs that, you know, self-defined bullshit jobs that don't need to exist, but exist for a whole host of reasons, including just to keep people in work. Next says 70% is consumer, not like business to business. So I haven't looked too deeply into the stat, but the person who said it, I did trust them. They said consumer spending made up 70% of the economy. And then I think in Canada, it's like 60% is consumer spending. I don't know the specific definition of consumer spending, but I would think that it doesn't include business to business transactions. Hang on, let me just catch up on where we were. Nuntaken says, Fad's got me watching a whole college lecture. That's a great compliment. Sometimes like I get into the rabbit holes and I get a bit too deep into like the nitty gritty of the numbers, and I do try to sometimes pull it back to big picture stuff. But I'm glad you're enjoying it. You know, I think this is education is liberation, even if it's not financial liberation. Praise the sun. The future is here, just isn't evenly distributed. Yeah, exactly. Jacoby says, if AI takes all the jobs, it could start bartering system again, like only things that humans can make become the new currency. I'm interested as to what you think that would be if AI did take all the jobs. Like, what would be the things humans can make if all of our jobs have been replaced by technology? I'm just speculating. Okay. Here's the sun says, in thinking about the relationship between tech and labor, one of the most useful conceptual frameworks is centaurs versus reverse centaurs. A centaur is someone whose work is supercharged by automation. You're a human head atop the tireless body of a machine that lets you get more done than you could ever do on your own. The reverse centaur is someone harnessed to the machine, reduced to a mere peripheral, for a cruelly tireless robotic overlord that directs you to do the work it can't at a robotic pace. Yeah, and I think there's a shift, right, where we're clearly seeing that I think honestly what you're just describing there is like a metaphor for job polarization. People being pushed into low paid work, which can't be automated, but is ran by the owners of automation. And the other jobs, which is, managing the automated systems. Oh, yeah, that's a good job. Good explanation. Goosey, what are some examples of bullshit jobs consulting? So in the book, the author defines like a few different kinds of bullshit jobs, but the ultimate rule is that the only person who can decide if it's a bullshit job is the person who does it. Consulting was given as one of the examples. I actually briefly worked in consulting for 3 months before I tapped out, and I was like, I can't do this. This is such a scam. But yeah, consulting definitely falls into that range quite a lot. Yeah, maybe afterwards we'll search it, but there's like a few different criteria he gives for the different classes of bullshit jobs. There are jobs that exist purely. So for example, government jobs. Often when you see that there are more jobs in the economy, this is true in many different countries. Like if the job market is growing, like a big chunk of that is government jobs being added in order to basically stop people from being out of work. The government always hires more people than it needs. So a lot of those jobs are bullshit jobs, for example. But the only person who can decide is the person who does the job, whether or not they think that their job needs to exist. Okay. Okay. And A3J says also, yeah, parts of living here is all right, not incredibly alt-right. But it's incredibly alt-right in a way that's not all right. That's a bar. Drove past a convoy of trucks with flags for the orange man the other day. Yeah, that sounds a bit stressful, to be honest. Ugh. Cytonic, do you think that people who work in areas that would be considered creative have some protection from AI? It depends, right? Because obviously we've seen like AI art has already like materially affected artists, right? You're seeing like AI art being submitted into art competitions, or artists having their work stolen and, a cheap replica being made with AI. So it's hard to say that creative jobs are safe. I definitely think there's just going to be a contraction where it's going to be more and more top heavy, where the heavy hitters are going to command more and more of the power. The J.K. Rowlings and George R.R. Martins of the writing world will command even more power than the indie authors ever had. That's what I believe. I just have to not say Orange Man's real name or describe the dick extending lift kit. Painting, farm, and fashion designer. Yes, AI could do this stuff, but the fact that it's a human-made product would add the value to it. I agree, but the value can only be added in terms of financial sense if we have the money to add that value. If there's a huge contraction in what everyone has, then the trade between all of us is not going to be as significant because we're all going to be a bit more broke. Then taken says, I don't mind resources getting automated. Human resources getting sorry, HR workers. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to feel sorry for the HR workers, but they are workers like everyone else, right? Box checker, that was one of the criteria of bullshit jobs, right? My job only exists so the bosses can lie to shareholders that we aren't starving people. My boss is a food commodity trader. Right, yeah. Okay, I'm curious what that involves, but yeah, definitely sounds potentially scammy, or scummy at least. As I was kind of thinking how Star Trek works when people just make stuff as a hobby. Oh yeah, I don't think people are ever going to stop making stuff, for sure. Like nobody's ever going to, like, we're never going to lose painting or art unless it's like a dictatorship or whatever that tries to ban it. It's one of the most like robust elements of human history, right? Is our propensity to create art. Like, it's crazy to think that the earliest humans were creating art on the walls of caves out of no reason other than pure desire. There's no reason to do a cave painting, especially if you're if you're literally like incredibly food insecure. And they still chose to create art in those caves. I think it's crazy. I think it's beautiful, to be honest. So yeah, I don't think we're ever going to lose it. It just might not be rewarded financially in the way that it deserves. But yeah, where were we? We were talking about. Oh yeah, so yeah, as I was saying, we were talking about the fact that the discrepancy between the people who own the assets and the people who just own their labor is just going to continue to grow because it is, I believe, it is is going to continue to grow because it's, technology has measurably affected that discrepancy, and it's measurably increased inequality and measurably led to more and more middle income workers who had the ability to climb up the ability to climb up that financial ladder, being pushed into lower paid jobs. And when thinking about what the future would look like after all of this takes place, you have the optimist. The optimist will likely bring up some form of, universal basic income, universal basic income, which is the idea that everyone, regardless of their social status, regardless of their employment status, of any kind of metric, will receive a fixed stipend, a fixed amount of money to spend on whatever they want, right? And the idea is that if enough people lose their jobs, then we have to begin to divorce the idea of survival from labor. And we have to accept that survival is not something that can be conditional on being able to work. Praise the Sun says, I feel like at some point the main argument for why we even make technology is to make the standard of living better for people. Did capitalism mess that up, or was it never the point? That's a good point. It's a good, interesting thing to think about, actually, because I've thought about this a lot. And in the early days of technology, when you think about the earliest project, like even the internet, right? So the internet initially started as a project to connect US universities, right? Because this is a tangent, but back in the day, computers were really rare. And so you'd have to split a computer between several different universities. So maybe MIT, Harvard, and Yale all wanted to use the computer, and they needed to come up with a system to timeshare, to effectively split up the time. And this was the early start of the internet, right? It started purely practically to make their lives better. But they realized it was incredibly useful and just expanded it. And then it went crazy once they realized it was profitable. So I think that human curiosity is like almost always the seed for innovation, but it's rarely the final product of what happens with it, right? Like the seed and the tree are completely different. So I think technology often starts out as a product of human curiosity, but it rarely ends that way. That's my take. Cytonic Flux says, have you done an essay on UBI? I haven't, no. I'm definitely interested in going a bit more in detail, though, about UBI and doing that at some point. I think it's a good topic. It's on my list. I just want to do it justice, and I feel like with my weekly videos, I have to really like constrain the scope to finish them mainly. So yeah, there will be one at some point when I can do it justice. Praise the Sun says, UBI wouldn't work for the same reason having a kid having their money stolen isn't being solved by giving the kid even more lunch money. Yeah, well, that's a very good argument, right? But I mean, the proponents of UBI would at least argue that it'll be a way to stop mass starvation, to fulfill basic needs at least. A3J says, but what if universal basic income manifests essentially as script company currency, which is depending on the value that produced for the company, so long as you comply with their terms on it. So you're actually describing something that took place in the US before. So the idea of like company towns, I don't know if that's something you're familiar with, but companies would historically like set up basically entire towns around their main offices where they would own the housing, they would own the food shops, and you would be paid in tokens effectively, right? That could only be spent in the food shops. And so they decided the value of the currency. I think they were outlawed, I'm pretty sure, like company towns like that. And so I think universal basic income has to be like, well, it has to be like a government initiative for it to be even remotely feasible, right? It can't be something that's managed by a private entity. And I think, it only works if, to be fair, it only really works if the state does take a bigger role in funding people. Innovation zones is the new name. Okay. Don't give Apple any idea. They've already got Apple Park, which is huge already. So, a few houses on the edge, they could do that. Let's see. A3 says, yes, coal miners, mining company script. Okay, yeah. Also, Wayland Yutani shares in the first Alien movie. Okay, I've never seen the first Alien movie. It's the one where the alien like pops out Sigourney Weaver's belly, right? Like I've seen that scene. I also have only seen the first Predator. I've never seen Alien versus Predator. But yeah, it's interesting that they uh they operate that way. Zoe says when Elon Musk described how the economy of Mars will be, he basically described a company town. Yeah, unsurprising. I also saw him describe as at the most recent Tesla event. He described the robo taxis as individualized mass transit, which is so crazy. It's like, bro, just build a train if you want mass transit. Next says, bloody hell, it's 2 a.m. I'm about to go to bed. Have fun, y'all. Good night, Next. Good night. Get some sleep, okay? Get some rest. The Flower says, the first two Alien movies are fantastic. I would recommend against watching Alien 3, although Alien Resurrection is okay. Okay, interesting. The director is actually from not that far away from, he's from the northeast of the UK, which is the part of the UK that I was raised in as well. Yeah, he's a good guy. Hey, yo, Leo, how you doing, man? I thought you were asleep today. As if you're not a movie watcher, Aliens 1 and 2 are highly recommended. No, I like movies. I just don't get much time to watch them. But Alien will be added to the letterbox list, which grows ever longer. Leo says a bit late. You're bang on time, mate. You should be asleep, to be honest. I thought, oh, it's good. It's good that you're not here. You know, you're sleeping, but it's also great to have you here. hope your Friday's been good. Basically, we just got we're towards the end. We're just talking about universal basic income, and how the optimist basically would predict that technology's takeover would lead to a system of universal basic income where living standards would drop so extremely that the state would be forced to intervene and to fulfill those fundamental needs for the people at whole. But universal basic income is not a completely new idea or anything. In fact, it's been something that's been mentioned for hundreds of years, actually. And significantly, probably the best example is in the 1930s, this man here was a US senator. His name was Huey Long, and he began a movement after the Great Depression called Share Our Wealth. And the whole principle of Share Our Wealth was that living standards had dropped so extremely after the Great Depression that he believed, as you know, as a US senator, that the state had a duty to rebalance things effectively, that they had a duty to tax the rich, and they had a duty to be much more aggressive with it. And he effectively birthed a modern UBI movement. It actually was arguably the most popular, the most well-known UBI movement, until he got shot and assassinated, and it kind of died after that because the guy who took over was not so good. But UBI has been a really popular topic, specifically in response to impending or previous economic crises. Whenever there's a fear of an economic crisis or the fallout from one, the idea of UBI comes back into vogue. And when the economy is doing great, people tend to forget about it. Or rather, when living standards are doing great, people tend to forget about it. And it's hard to see that, like, to see that there have been efforts to implement UBI, to at least push it forward for over 100 years now. And it really doesn't feel like we're any closer. Because I think UBI has a few psychological barriers that we need to get through when we're talking about the public at large to see any kind of desire for its adoption. There are charities who are trying it, like Give Directly, who are a charity you can donate to that simply give cash payments to families in Kenya. And this is the closest thing that we have to a true UBI experiment. Obviously, it's not universal, so it's not perfect, but it's a really good experiment to see what happens when you give people just direct cash payments. And when they conclude their research, we'll have actually some like actual really effective data as to what happens when you give people who are really struggling to get the essentials just simple cash. Could I post a link to that, please? Oh yeah, Give Directly. Yeah, they're a charity, so you can see that. Hang on, I'll drop a link to get. I mean, their website is probably the best place to. Yeah, there we go. So I'll send you the GIF directly. Read about their experiment there. Hang on, let me just catch up on the messages. Where were we? Thanks A3J for Century of the South recommendation. Oh yes, I did. I also started Century of the South. I didn't get to finish it, but it is really good. It's totally different to what I expected. Didn't expect all the psychology and stuff to link into that. But yeah, great rec. Alien 3 isn't an aliens movie, it's a hell movie. The Cab Prometheus is a god movie. Okay. Okay, Mayang says, if UBI gives everyone money, won't inflation go crazy? First thing I would say is inflation is already pretty crazy. But the idea is that, or at least the theory in this context, is that different to UBI in general. The theory in this context is that if job losses are so extreme that nobody can even afford the essentials, then UBI is a way to at least get us to afford the essentials. Now, it's generally believed that UBI is probably going to be inflationary, but it's one of those things that's actually really hard to try to like assess until you actually test it at its scale to figure out where people choose to spend this money if given a stipend. But also the theory as well says that a lot of people will drop out of the workforce if given a UBI. And so the net amount of spending might just be redistributed instead of increasing, right? If you get given a stipend and then you choose to no longer work, you're going to be spending the same amount of money every month, right? If the two line up, or you might even be spending less money. And so your consumer spending could actually decrease and it might not be inflationary in that way. Hope that makes sense. So yeah, it would only be inflationary if no one quit their jobs. Or rather, if no one quit their jobs and we did UBI, then it would definitely be inflationary. But part of the expected impact of UBI is for people to stop working and just chill. Chandler says, the business plot took place only a few months before his assassination. For those of you not familiar with the business plot, Google it. Oh, I'm actually not familiar with the business plot. I'm not gonna read it right now, but I'm just gonna give it. Okay, they tried to. I didn't know they tried to overthrow FDR. That's kind of wild. Okay, I'm saving this link for later. But business plot sounds wild. Okay, I've got to catch up on a few more messages. Mercy Chocolate says, I wish you were kidding. I wish I was kidding, but when you introduced him, I joked in my head they definitely killed him. Yeah, sadly, he did get assassinated. And Huey Long is probably one of the examples of someone who is the most vocal about UBI in a position of power. Mercy Chocolate says, is there a documentary about this, or am I thinking of something else? Maybe. I'm not too sure. I'm not too familiar. I'm not too sure of any documentary. A3J says, it's also fair to say that Keynesian economics essentially only failed because they were being tied to post-World War II unofficial colonialism, which ended through the 70s oil crisis. Well, I mean, the transition was driven by, we're getting a bit in the weeds here, but like, I don't know if you can tie, I mean, you can really tie the change of an economic system to one specific like event in that way, right? And there are specific like people of power, like say Margaret Thatcher, or specific individuals who were super populist and super able to garner public opinion, and that has a huge effect on the transition of economic systems, right? Margaret Thatcher, for example, was like super popular amongst a certain class of very politically active British person, and was able to garner a huge amount of support and therefore push through her agenda. Yeah, I think I need to write an essay to respond to that question in a meaningful way. Goosey says, Alaska gives people 1 to 1.5k every year from the Alaska Permanent Fund. Yes, that's actually, that's a really interesting case. I really need to look into that more. But basically, if you don't know, Alaska, because they have tons and tons of oil reserves, actually just pay like a little bit of money every year to everyone who's a resident there in order for them to basically profit from the huge amount of oil revenues that they make. It's a really nice thing that Alaska does, actually. Chandler says Keynesian economics because Milton Friedman and laissez-faire economics also related to the business plot. That sounds like a very reasonable statement. Okay, that says if you tie what UBI system is used to inflation. Well, the thing is, inflation is super hard to control, as we've already seen as well, right? Especially because it's affected so much by supply. And so if you have supply chain issues, then you're cooked as well. But yeah, inflation is a hard one to control. And if you tie it, yeah, I mean, I guess it depends what you mean by tying it to inflation. But that could work, I think. But then again, I'm not an economist. All the King's Men is a book about Huey Long that touches on the UBI. I'm going to save that. I get so many good recommendations in here. All the King's Men. Oop, saved it. Oh, increase the rates of UBI by the rates of inflation. Yeah, so this is the argument that you often hear when we talk about increasing wages in response to inflation. Some would argue that it creates like a self-perpetuating cycle where if you increase wages, people spend more and that increases inflation. But if you don't increase wages, inflation is still getting worse anyways. So presumably any UBI system would be tied to inflation in that way. Otherwise, you'd be decreasing people's purchasing power every year, right? So yeah, I do agree that it should be tied. Millie Dragon says, "Hiya, hello Millie, hello. I like your profile picture. It's very, very cute. Oh, very nice profile picture." But yeah, so we were talking about UBI, universal basic income, and the fact that there have been efforts over the last century to implement some kind of UBI, and these efforts have sadly not really seen any productive results. Huey Long is the best example of a politician who was in a significant position of power and really pushed for it up until his assassination. And Give Directly's pilot project will maybe give us some real evidence on whether UBI, on what the impacts of UBI are, at least in Kenya. Now, what would the pessimists say, right? So the pessimists might look at the fact that technology has increased inequality as it stands. They might also look at the fact that in-work poverty has increased over the last 2 decades. And something like, in the UK, something like 2/3 of families in poverty are working families. Families where at least one person has a job. And the pessimists might also look at the fact that we already, as a society, have decided that some people are not worthy of being paid the minimum wage. I've talked about this previously, but some sub-minimum wages are a really big thing across the US, across the UK and Europe as well. And we already have, societally at least, accepted that some people are worth less than minimum wage. The pessimists might see this and believe that it's a trend that will be accelerated with more technology, that unless the gains are redistributed in an equitable manner, then jobs will continue to get more and more polarized as the amount of skill required to do those high-paying jobs increases. And sadly, this is, this does feel more plausible to me. I really do want to see a world where UBI gains traction, but working poverty is already really normalized. And as Zoe Phillips says, it is one of the saddest things in modern society. And if we can justify working poverty already, then we can continue to justify it even when it gets to the point when people are literally starving, because we are already at the point where people are literally starving but still working. Now, obviously, there's a degree of speculation here. There always is, but the thing I do want to present is that, or the thing I do want to emphasize is that technology has, measurably affected inequality, and I do think we will have to go through a period where it gets worse before it gets better. And I hope to see at least a push towards policy decisions that allow the gains in productivity, the gains in the economy that are produced by automation and automated technologies to actually trickle down to workers in a way that they don't seem to have done thus far. Chandler says in the US, 93% of the stock market is owned by the top 10%. It's estimated that over 70% of stock market trades are currently conducted by AI. Companies prioritize maximizing shareholder returns. Chandler says, do you think a peasant uprising is a possibility? I'd like to think it's a possibility. Like, it's something I'd really like to believe, but the issue is it's the criteria for an uprising has gotten so high. It's so difficult to have even just a regular protest. In the UK, we've criminalized loads of protesters. People are being arrested for protesting, and technology has made it so much more difficult to stand up against against your overlords. And there are countries that have been able to politically revolt. So I think that North Africa famously over the last decade has had tons of revolutions of some kind, at least. And so it's not completely out of the order that we could do that in English speaking countries as well. But I do think it would have to get really bad. I think it would have to get to the point where people are starving in mass. I think, yeah. Currently, too many people are at the point where if they just accept that this is the way the world is and they just put in their time, they'll live a standard of living that's just about acceptable. One where they're fed and housed and sheltered. But when we start to lose those things, I think when people can't eat is when shit hits the fan. So I think, yeah, when they can't eat, that's to me is going to be the trigger point for any kind of revolution, I would say. I would like to see one though. I really would. Praiser Sen says, our job is the same it's always been. Asks not merely what the technology does, but who does it and who does it for, and who does it to. I agree. Why don't they eat cake? We are no more than 5 missed meals from revolution. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as soon as you start messing with people's food, they will get angry. A3J says, the closest I will probably ever allow myself to get watch listed over an online communication is read this. They can't arrest us. Yeah, they can't arrest us all. And Gaza feels incredibly poignantly relevant to this. Yeah, exactly right. They can't arrest us all. And it's a numbers game, honestly. There's more of us than there is of them. And it's just that technology has made us really atomized as well, like feel like we're alone, feel like there aren't that many people, and lose sense of the scale of humanity, right? Humanity is so vast. There's so many people every day, everywhere. And they just need to talk to each other. That's literally all they need to do and would be on the right path. All that's missing is the unity, man. Yeah. Dayflower says, every time I go outside, I'm baffled by how many people there are. And I know that I'm laughing, but I literally have the same thought like regularly. It's happened ever since I've started going for walks without my headphones, and I just like force myself to take in my surroundings, and I just realize that there are so many people everywhere all the time. And yeah, I just wish we could talk to each other more. Thankfully, in this city, in Montreal, people do talk to each other, which is quite nice. Yeah, and it makes you feel alive, right? How are this many other people driving at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday? You're one of those people, right? You're one of those people. Praise the sun, solidarity forever. We've only been able to talk to each other like this for 30 years. Hope springs eternal. Yeah. And the internet can be a beautiful tool, right? Like a lot of the protests that were organized in North Africa in the early 2010s were largely mobilized through Twitter, back in the day, and people were able to use technology to, the people's advantage. It did lead to social medias being banned during these protests quite often, but people still use them. They use VPNs and they found ways to use technology for the common good, which I think is really good. But yeah, I got some closing remarks. What did I want to mention? Is there anything I've not mentioned? Oh yeah, we were going to talk about the Luddites very briefly, right? So yeah, as I said, obviously there's a degree of speculation involved, and the big difference that we can likely expect to see is that AI and automation is going to continue to apply downward pressure on those really high paying jobs as well as the lower paying, as well as middle income jobs. High paying jobs, professional jobs are going to suffer as well as middle income jobs. And I at least predict that we're going to see an even greater push of these people who are in high skill jobs into low skill jobs, because there's going to be an increased oversupply, which there already is. And those people have to find something to do. The solution really is to find a way, ideally a policy decisions that make sure that the gains of AI are somewhat equitably distributed amongst the rest of us. Yeah, that's basically it. Praise the sovereignty of that's video about Dailies theory. Praise the sun says unions have proven they can fight and beat the bad version of AI. Yeah, so definitely. I mean, the longshoreman strike, if you don't know much about it, it's a really interesting one. They've really been pushing back, because in China, actually, their job has already begun to be automated. So they've, I think something like 10%, 5 to 10% of longshoremen, of dock workers, have lost their job to, automating technologies that can pick up shipping containers and move them around and stuff. So the fact that the US dock workers are actually like holding out against this and willing to shut down the economy, which they should be willing to do that, is a good thing. It's a good thing, right? It at least means that they're reminding themselves that they have bargaining power, not just lying down and taking it. Yeah, Chandler says, yeah, TLDR, capitalism ruins everything. Pretty much, yeah. Thomas, very good final take. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's an interesting problem, because obviously there are no real answers, and time will tell. Particularly, economic downturns will really be the thing that will tell us what's going to happen, because we're going to see huge job losses. We're already starting to see layoffs. If there's a real economic downturn, we'll see huge job losses, and we'll see whether or not those job losses will recover, which they don't normally do. And take into the stream. Oh, thank you. I'm glad I got to do it. I like to do these streams. I had a very busy, somewhat stressful week, and being able to do this makes it all that much better, I think. Then he says, it reminds me of the Luddites, hopefully a better outcome. Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about the Luddites. Mercy says, enjoyed the stream, checking out for the night. Have a good weekend, everyone. Good night, Mercy. Have a good one. So I actually cut out the bit about the Luddites. But yeah, the Luddites were a group of people who protested machines that helped weaving, because they did their weaving by hand, like weaving fabrics. And it got so bad when these weaving machines, these looms were created, that Luddites would go out and smash the machines. They were like huge protesters. And obviously, we automated the process of weaving, and we have sewing machines and things like that now. But it's not the only outcome. There have been cases where even Queen Elizabeth I, I have an example here. Oh, where is it? I didn't find a way to sensibly work it into the script, but there's a story of Queen Elizabeth. Let me find it. Oh yeah. Mayank says, good night, everyone. I'm going to head out. Good night, Mayank. Oh, good morning. have a good day, bro. Have a good day. Lanra says, thanks for the stream. Great discussion. Yeah, no, that was really great. I enjoyed it. Where are we? Hang on. Oh yeah. So in the 1580s, a man invented a knitting machine, basically a machine to knit with. And his whole idea was that by doing that, you would be able to make life easier for people who were knitting by hand. And he traveled to go see the Queen to show her this new machine he'd invented. And she was like, this is not it, right? The exact quote is, thou aimest high, Master Lee. Consider what thou what the invention could do to my poor subjects. It would surely bring them to ruin by depriving them of employment, thus making them beggars. And this is a quote from the 1500s. So, the question of whether automation is, going to ruin society has been an open question for over 500 years, since the days of Queen Elizabeth I. So yeah, I did think that was interesting that even in the 1580s, they were having this discussion. at the highest levels of society about whether to bring in technology, whether it would ruin people's lives. Okay, where were we? There's a way that AI could destroy the human race. The carbon footprint associated with training. Yeah, no, yeah, the carbon footprint of AI and of crypto as well is super duper high. Obviously, I mean, agriculture is the one thing that's going to get us, right? Because everyone has to eat, and we don't want to. Nobody wants to stop eating meat, so that's gonna get us. But yeah, I think I don't know if we're going to do anything about it. Oh yeah, Thomas said the same thing as well. Animal agriculture as well. Yeah, I mean, multiple things, right, can contribute. Uh, Thank you, Cytonics, as well. Thank you for the kind words. It 3 years as the saddest and funniest and most hopeful thing I can say reunity is I can identify a multitude of conservatives I know, and I feel like with a bit of education, I could ask them this: how does it feel to go your whole life without knowing you're a socialist? No, I agree. I try to I try to keep the content accessible as well. That's a principle, right? Because I feel like we have more in common than separates us. And so I feel like you could be a conservative and watch my content and generally enjoy it and at least learn a thing or two. That's at least the goal, right? Accessibility overall. And thanks, Landrunner. Thanks for the kind words. Praise the Sun was saying the Luddites weren't angry or frightened of machines. They were angry at the machine's owners. They understood the purpose of a machine so easy a child could use it was to fire skilled adult workers, replace them with kidnapped, indentured Napoleonic war orphans who could be maimed and killed on the job without consequence. No, yeah, that is a very accurate rendition of the story. I was actually reading an article yesterday, and they were saying similar things. I didn't finish it, so I didn't feel like it was right to mention it. But yeah, I think you've done better research than me on this one. Yeah, the Luddite story is often simplified as like a fear of technology, but there was definitely a social element to it as well. Of course, we have more in common than we don't. We're not executives. Oliver Twist was based on one of those orphans. Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. That's interesting. Huh. I do need to keep reading. Leo says, missed most of the stream, but looks interesting. Can't wait to see the full video. Have a good one, everybody. Take care, Leo. Get some sleep, man. Have a good night, bro. Yeah, I'm also going to be wrapping up soon because I sadly do still have some work that needs to get done that I couldn't get done today because of technical issues. So I'm going to do maybe an hour of work and then get some food to eat and go to sleep as well. But it was a really good discussion today. It's always a pleasure to have you guys here with me on these Fridays. I always enjoy it as well. And it's Leo, I'll eat if you go to sleep, okay? That finger is so intimidating. But yeah, no. As I said, these are always the best part of my week, doing these streams. I really like them. And I'm glad you guys have chosen to spend at least a few hours with me today on a Friday. You could be doing a multitude of things, but you chose to spend some time with me, and I appreciate that. And I am eternally grateful. But in the meantime, I'm going to get off, get some grub, something to eat, have a little nap. Not a nap. Do some work. I'm not going to nap. I'm going to have a sleep. But otherwise, I do wish you guys a lovely, lovely weekend. I think I'm getting tired, which is why I'm talking nonsense. Be well and thank you to Praise the Sun. Thanks for your comments. They're very insightful. That's the big benefit of doing these live is that I get all of your lovely, insightful comments and takes and angles that I didn't consider. And I love that. But otherwise, I'm going to wish you all a really lovely night, okay? Take care of yourself. Stay hydrated, drink water. Yeah. Tell your loved ones you love them. And have a lovely weekend, okay, team? Take care. Bye. Bye.